Selamat pagi. That's all I know. So we do this in English? Okay? All right. So we are now on the 5th training session that we've had. This is the final one, and then that takes over, Bahasa. So basically the idea here is that you have a new performance management system that you'll be bringing in as of really this month. And what today is about is to inform you what it is, how it works, what it means, particularly for what we call pay for performance. How does that interrelate and relate? So we'll take you through that, and then this afternoon we'll spend time talking to you about what we call conflict management. How do you resolve conflicts? And more importantly, how do you negotiate? Because your bosses have all been trained. So it's not fair that when you go and sit down in your job performance review, that your bosses know how to handle negotiations and you don't. This is your opportunity to be on equal footing, right? And it's also very important because for this performance management system to work, you need to negotiate. You need to discuss. You need to agree to disagree. And there are all sorts of areas in the performance management system that allow you to express your ideas and allow you to express issues that you may have. That's very, very important. The key difference between what you had before, or what you have today, to what you will have tomorrow, as of now, is that there is a lot of documentation. But it's up to you to document. Don't expect others. Because I know in doing these programs, there's been a lot of frustration with your colleagues about how they write and nothing ever gets done. They complain, nothing ever gets done. They see abuses, nothing ever gets done. This system is based on the fact that these things will be captured. And these things will be brought forward. So HR function is really changing compared to what it used to be. HR has a different role now to play, as do the HODs. And I'll show you that this morning. So basically what we're here to do is really to talk about what is the performance management system. Why is it different? How does it work? How will it improve your lives? And basically right now what you have is you have a system that is the pieces are there, but they're not fitting. Non-executives are reviewed based on behaviors, but executives are not. HODs, we don't know what they're doing, and we're not sure how they're reviewed. You have KPIs, and we'll see this later, that make no sense. You have all sorts of issues. So what we're saying is that we know the problems you have. And by and large, the new performance management system is here to address most of them. But like all systems, they depend on people. They depend on you to activate, they depend on your bosses to also activate. The system's only as good as the people who are using it. It is not a 100% solution. It never is. Systems depend on people. Okay? So basically what we're going to do this morning is we're going to spend the entire morning talking about the new performance management system. And then in the afternoon, we're going to start doing what we call role plays. Where you'll get to act out either you're the employee, whether you're the boss, or you're going to observe things. And this is basically to allow you to practice. How do you negotiate conflict? How do you understand conflict? And how do you negotiate? And what are some of the tools that you can use, particularly verbal tools, that you can use to help? Because this is important. If you have no disagreement, there is no learning. There's no moving forward. So you should have disagreements with your boss. You should have disagreements with your colleagues. You should have disagreements with your underlings if you have, or your subordinates if you are an executive, the people working for you. That is normal. That is healthy. Right? But it's how you go about it, how you talk about issues, how you resolve issues that's important. And that's what we're going to spend the whole afternoon on. Okay? How's my English so far? I tend to speak very fast, I'm sorry. I'll try to slow down. I'll breathe. Okay. So, what is the performance management system? We've been working with Sven from OSR, Ellie and myself. We've been working with you and your organization since November, so for 4 months. And at the beginning of it, the objective was basically SPAN was interested in bringing in what's called pay for performance. What is pay for performance? Pay for performance is that you have bonuses, but those bonuses vary depending on how well you do. Right now, everyone just gets a bonus, if you get a bonus at all. And so therefore, it's not really fair because those that do excellent work are treated the same way as those that are not doing any work. And the other thing about pay for performance is that you want to attract people to your organization to SPAN to basically help run the water in Malaysia. It's an important job and you need good people. And good people come to organizations that have a pay for performance. Particularly this younger generation, the Gen Ys, are looking for pay for performance. And if you look at it, Intel Water has it, sewer companies have it, et cetera, et cetera. So your stakeholders have it. It's only normal that you would have it. So that's the objective. The objective is that ultimately bonuses should be paid based on performance. But to do that, you need a system. Otherwise, it's unfair. It's favoritism. You never know why somebody got a bonus and somebody didn't. Right? It's random. And that is not what the purpose of a pay for performance is. So what I want to do is I want to spend some time talking to you about what do you need in order for you to be able to afford or offer pay for performance. And what you need is you need 3 pieces. You need this, what we call the backbone of the system, and you need KPIs, and you need what we call leadership competencies, which are behaviors. And we'll go through that, why we have it, and how it all fits together. Okay. So basically, let's look at the central piece, which is this element. In order for you to offer a fair compensation and a fair bonus system, you need to have these elements in place. You need to understand what is SPAN doing, your purpose. That's your vision, your mission, your objectives, things like this. From that then, you have what's called an organizational strategy. You figure out, how do I get these objectives? I'm going to figure out the different elements that I must have in place as an organization. Then from there, you then set up your teams, you set up your people. That is the organizational structure. Within the organizational structure, then you have jobs, job descriptions, job evaluations. Right? So each of you has a job description. Yeah. That job description relates to your organization, where you are in the organization, and what are you to do. Okay. From there, then, every job description and evaluation should have a pay scale. You should be, your salary and your benefits should be in line with somebody who's doing an equivalent job somewhere else. This piece of it, the salary scales and the terms and conditions of each of your jobs, has been reviewed. We did that job for you. We looked at not only the salary scales, we also looked at the benefits. And we can tell you that that has been submitted to SPAN steering committee, and adjustments are being made. That piece is now covered. So these elements are all in place. And therefore, if everyone has the correct salary scale, you now can start talking about job performance reviews, because everyone's being paid what they should be being paid. And everyone's receiving benefits as they should have receiving benefits. Because what happens, and we see this very often, this is what's possibly happened with you in the past, is that because your salary scales are too low, you are getting increases, not based on performance, but based on the fact that, oh, we'll give you something here. That's not right. That's not correct. And it's not fair for you. It's not transparent. So basically, once you have these elements in place, you can do a decent job performance review. And therefore, you can ultimately have pay for performance. And within the pay for performance, we always talk about talent selection and development. The idea that the people who really do really well should be educated, should be developed so that they can take over from the bosses. Ideally, SPAN should be growing from within, not from receiving people from the outside. That's not fair for people inside the organization. So that's the idea. So this is okay now, particularly since the salary scale has been adjusted. And then we have to talk about, well, what are you going to talk about during the job performance review? What does that mean? The job performance review are made up of two things. We talk about the what of the job and the how of the job. Those are important. If you only have the what with your KPIs, then basically anything goes. You can have bosses who are completely outrageous. You can have colleagues who do not show up, right? Who have bad behavior, who are dishonest, but who still get the job done. That's not fair. So you need a balance between the what, which is the performance, and the how, which are behaviors. And for that, we therefore have what's called KPIs. KPIs measure the operational elements of SPAN and of your job. And what we call leadership competencies measure the behaviors. Behaviors generate culture. Your culture of SPAN depends on your behaviors. They're interlinked. So if you do not measure behaviors, your culture will not change. Now, we've been working with you since November. When we come into your offices at Cyberjaya, it's very quiet. It's a very quiet organization. We're worried about that. It makes us worried. Because organizations that are what we call high performance, there's a noise level in the organization. There's a buzz. You'll see this afternoon when we do the role play. You hear the culture first. You hear it. And we've worked with organizations where it's very typical of what happens in SPAN. We walk in, there's no noise. There's no one to be seen, right? Empty. But there are people there, and it's empty. After about 18 months of a properly working performance management system, you walk into your office at SPAN, you'll hear noise. And it's a positive noise. It's people talking with a lot of energy to each other. Why? Because they're sharing information. They're working together, they're collaborating. They're not sitting at their desk working like this all day, they're actually getting up and walking around and talking to people. You do that in an organization that has the right culture, the right behaviors are encouraged. Those behaviors generate trust, and they generate empowerment, and they generate discussion, and they generate all sorts of things. So that's our hope, is that in 18 months when we come back to visit you, we hear noise. We hear things happening in your office. Right? And the only way to do that is through what we call behaviors. Right? So this is basically how, and this is the first slide I showed you, all of the elements fit together. We have the backbone, and then we have the two branches. KPIs and behaviors. Okay? So what we'll do this morning is take you through KPIs and through behaviors. Right now, you have a group within this strategy group under Dr. Shukri, headed by Mazdi, who basically is doing KPIs. He has probably the hardest job in SPAN, because it's not easy to do, particularly the first time to do it right. What we can tell you is the KPIs you have now are not right. They're not good, not appropriate. But to get them right, it takes a lot of effort. So the first time that you'll get your KPIs, which should be at the end of this month, maybe next month, certainly before the middle of the year, you'll work on your new KPIs. It will be a first attempt. And then you get better as time goes on. So be a little bit patient with KPIs. It takes time. But we'll walk through the fundamentals of KPIs this morning. And then over here is the behavior piece. That's the piece that we've been doing with what we call a steering committee. So all of the behavior elements were done by people in SPAN. Not only the HODs, in the steering committee we also had Gen Ys, we had talent pool people, we had a variety of people from SPAN, all from SPAN. And all of these decisions were made by SPAN people. So it wasn't from us, we just facilitated the process. Okay, this is important. So the behaviors belong to you, they're your behaviors. The KPIs belong to you, they're done by you. They're done by you. This is a SPAN system. This is not taken off the shelf, given to you here, do this. Not at all. It's all been developed from the ground up with your people. Okay? Very important. So let's look at the KPIs. The first thing. KPIs basically are the what of the job, right? They measure what are you expected to do, what have you done, what still needs to be done. The problem is that KPIs are misunderstood. And basically everyone looks at their job description and says, oh, those are my KPIs. No, that's your job. On top of your job, you also have KPIs. KPIs are basically the elements that are going to happen, that you're going to do on your job, in your job, that are going to allow the organization to move forward. That's different than what you've been doing. So when you turn around and say, well, what do? I do 10% of my time here, I do this, I do that. That's not a KPI. That's your job description. And you're going to have to do your job, and you're going to have to do KPIs, both together. Because your organization must move forward. Right now, SPAN is not moving forward fast enough. It's not achieving the targets it's supposed to achieve. How do we know this? We know this because the year before last, I'll use a blue one. Wow. The year before last, you basically, the ministry that you answered to, ran its KPIs for you. It gave you a set of KPIs, and you achieved 78%, I think. This past year, you did better. You're not at 87%. Your real target is really 100%, right? That means you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. As an organization, SPAN is not hitting its target. You're missing your target. Now, it's not you. You as people are all competent, you're intelligent, you're capable. One of the problems that you're suffering from is that you have a system that doesn't make sense. You're working in operations that don't work effectively together, right? You're not working efficiently. And as a consequence, yes, you cannot achieve your target yet. But I expect if this works as it's supposed to work, you're not only going to achieve 100%, you're going to go up to 120%. And then you can say, SPAN is a world-class water company. And you have the capabilities. Everything we've seen, all of your colleagues, you today, I look at you and I know you can do it. You just need the right systems. You need the right working environment. You need the right culture. You need the right KPIs. Okay? So basically, it's the what of the job. And the what of the job is to look at it this way. At the very top, there is the ministry and this commission, right? You have two bosses. They set your KPIs, in the ministry's case, and the commission, they set strong objectives. This last commission under the last government was very, very powerful. I met them. They were not easy. They were very demanding. You need to move SPAN forward. Okay. So that's what the direction was set by them. And I think the direction will continue because water is so important to Malaysia's future. From there then, Dr. Faisal and his direct reports, the HODs, sat down in January and they had a whole day in which they discussed what are the strategies. What are we going to do? And they came up with 8 strategies, and we'll look at these strategies this morning. They're very important because they set the goals for the organization. Now that we have the goals for the organization, we can then go down to what we call, in your case, department level, but what we normally call division level, the HODs, right? The different silos of the organization, and each of the directors sets yearly targets in order for them to accomplish the strategies. Once you have in the department, right, the HOD, then it goes on to the next level, which is the executive level. At the executive level, you basically figure out if we have these targets for the years, what are the tasks that we need to accomplish as a team in your team? And then once the team tasks are assigned, you then can go down to the individual tasks. What is your individual KPI? What are the KPIs? What are the things you must do in order for the direction to be accomplished? In order for you to be able to achieve at least this 100%. And the only way to do that is to link the KPI from the ministry to your job. It's the only way. Otherwise, you end up doing things that are not important or that are missed by the organization. Out of 22 KPIs that were given to you by the ministry, you didn't hit them all. Some were missed. How? It's because there was no system in place to ensure that the direction set was actually being done at the individual employee level. So everyone has different KPIs, and those KPIs are directly linked, must be, to the strategy and the deliverables that the organization is doing. What happens when you do achieve your KPIs? Oops, yeah, so this is the way it goes. Once you achieve your individual KPIs, then everyone in the department achieves them, then the department achieves its tasks. If the department achieves its tasks, and all the departments achieve their tasks, all the directors, the HODs, the divisions, do what they're supposed to do, right? They fulfill their goals. If all the goals are fulfilled, the strategies and the priorities are accomplished. If they are accomplished, well, you have success. So this is what happens. In reality, is that this is a trickle down, right? It starts in this direction on a yearly basis, and by the end of the year, this is complete. And the cycle continues. What happens is that you will see your tasks and the things that you work on, your KPIs, will change as the strategies get enacted, as the strategies change, as the ministry changes, etc. They will change on a yearly basis. That's normal, right? But if you can get this going, as we call it the flywheel, if you can get this going, which is an engine, right? If this engine starts churning, the organization starts moving much faster, much more efficient. And why? Because we're accomplishing the goals that are set. We're not just doing work. We're not just doing our jobs. We're moving forward. And we're moving forward together. Okay? So, we talked about strategies. Have you seen this chart? Have some of you seen this chart? Some, yeah? All of you? None of you? Some of you? Yes, most of you. Okay? Basically, this chart is the goal, the strategic goals that SPAN has set for itself. This is the people in SPAN. It's not the commission and it's not the ministry. It's the CEO and direct reports sat down and basically figured out there are 8 strategies that are key to SPAN being able to become basically this type of a provider, this type of a regulator. And there are 3 of these strategies that basically reflect on the job to be done, the water. The water is about continuous supply, resource management, and demand management. And then you can also argue it's also about the effective enforcement of these 3. So you can say 4 out of the 8 strategies are about doing a good job. The other 4, these customer centricity, strategic communication, world-class workforce, and digital transformation are about the organization itself, SPAN itself. What is SPAN doing internally to make itself better? So these are external, these 4, and these are internal, these 4. There's a nice balance. So the first one is about continuous supply. That's basically ensuring that water is available, right? Quality water. As I say every time, I live in Bangsa, and my supply is not great. At least not last year. It's been turned on, turned off, turned on, turned off. Yeah, that's not good. That is not an organization and a regulator that can hit 120%. So supply is important, which means that you have to have minimum reserve margin of the interconnected network, that you can move from one to another, sufficient storage, and that you have alternative supplies. That infrastructure is not quite there yet, right? And there's a lot of focus that needs to happen to make it happen. So SPAN must do things directly and indirectly in order to make that happen. So that's important. The next one is resource management, which is all about pollution control, risk management, reclaim, recycle, reuse, alternative sources, sewage catchment strategy. This is about recycling the water, right? Making better use of water. So this is about supply, this is about really efficiency. And then demand management is about the non-revenue water. I thought yesterday, up until yesterday, it meant non-recyclable water. It's non-revenue water, no, I know. Non-revenue water, the consumption, in terms of reduction, and more importantly, the tariff setting, which is a big problem in Malaysia. You have great water, that's your problem. If you're in Singapore, you don't have any water, right? So you know, look at Singapore is how much resources and time and quality and people they put into their water is incredible compared to yourselves. Your equivalents in Singapore is not only nationalized, they recruit the best people from all the universities and they go out there and do research and all that stuff. We're 30 years behind Singapore. I keep on hearing this. We're 30 years behind Singapore. Yeah, because if Singapore doesn't have its water management in place, they have no water. You have water. So you have a completely different set of conditions. And your set of conditions is how are you going to ensure that the water that you have today will be there in 30 years, will be of the quality so your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren can benefit from it. And the other thing is that the wars of the next generation are going to be the wars over water. This is a strategic asset, and it's in your hands. So you need to move up because water is so important, right? So this idea of demand, of resource management, of continuous supply are absolutely critical, and also of the effective enforcement. How are you going to make sure that the rules and regulations are properly enforced? So in order to do that then, you really have four elements. You have customer centricity, which is really stakeholder engagement, being more aware, generating more information as to how and why it's important to preserve water, to recycle water, to treat water properly. And then, in order to do that, you need three elements. You need one, a strategic world-class workforce. And this is basically a commitment to develop talent, so talent management, training and development, performance and rewards, that's why we're here today, and then scholarships. There is this element on board that basically you need to self-educate and you need to improve, and as a consequence, you should need to get scholarships, you should need to get certificates, etc., etc. The future is any case that way. Continuous education is the future. Digital transformation is about, and this is something that under Shukri's strategic command now, which is basically about IT strategy, big data, cybersecurity, and for some reason they put flexi hours here, but I think it belongs to the workforce. And then last but not least, this idea of strategic communication, awareness programs, education programs, social media engagement. If you go on the internet and you look at Ofwat, the English version of SPAN, look at what they're doing in terms of their community engagement. Working with GenWise, creating ideas, engaging NGOs, engaging the communities, talking about programs, sponsoring things, etc. You're not really doing any of that. And it's clear that if you want to really preserve the water for the future, you need to be doing that. You need to be engaging the people so they respect water and they work with water. So that's very, very, very much these two elements key to the future of water. So you have 8 strategies. You also have, at this point in time, 22 KPIs from the ministry. To Mazdi's credit, he's trying to bring it down from 22 to 7. Yes. If you can do that, great. Because those 7 are manageable. 22 are not manageable. 22 are crazy. 22 looks like somebody in the ministry is just typing away. Let's give you this KPI. It's not strategic. Strategic is 6 or 7. 5 is best. 7 is okay. 22 cannot work. Will not work. So hopefully you can get that through the ministry. So these are the 8. So the question becomes, how do we take these and bring them down to KPIs? How can we make this work? Because it's set here, and these are being set right now, right? The 7, I was going to go from 22 to 7. Who's going to be the new commissioner? What is that going to look like? Are they going to be the same type of focus, etc.? That's to be determined. But we know that this is fixed. So therefore, we need to set new targets based on this strategy, and we need to bring it all the way down to the individual level. So therefore, what you will see in the forms that you will have to fill out with your bosses is a direct link, and you'll see this. You see the direct link between what's happening up here and what you are doing. or are supposed to be doing. This is not add-on, this is KPIs. So yes, you have to do your job, but by the way, you also have to ensure that we hit these strategies. That's what this is about. Most important. So that's KPIs, the basis of KPIs. They're a very different strategy, right, or a very different idea. Normally, in companies, they start with the employee's job description and stay down there. We're saying, no, you have to start up here, and what is up here flows down to here. Just like water down here. Okay, the next side, right? So we talked about KPIs, let's talk about leadership competencies. Leadership competencies are behaviors, observable behaviors. Key word, observable. You have to be able to see it so you can talk about it. Non-observable behaviors do not accept. I heard that, but if you didn't see it, you can't talk about it. That's going to be a real issue with your bosses in your job performance review. Make sure it's observed, and you observe. It has to be visual, not gossip. So what we know is that observable behaviors can generate quality work, and that best performance in organizations do things differently. They work differently. They behave differently. What we're saying is that what are the behaviors that allow these people to achieve more than others? It's not just up here, it's also in here, right? It's how you speak, it's what you do, it's how you focus your time, it's how you use your energy. And so what happens is that all these observed behaviors from around the world have been collected and have been looked at. So again, this is an important one, this is an important one. And there's so many of them that basically we had 30 or 40 different behaviors that we looked at. We looked at off-water, we looked at the Canadian water, we looked at Singapore water, we looked all over the world at different regulators in the water industry. We also looked at water companies in general. We looked at all sorts of things. What have I done? We looked at all sorts of elements, and we came up with 40 different behaviors. Plus, we interviewed everyone, 19 the CEO and 19 directors, HODs, all the HODs, the CEO, and the talent pool. We also talked to your commission chairman at the time and one of your commission members about what they wanted to see in the behaviors. We took it all together and we ran 2 workshops. These workshops were basically to bring it from 40 down to hopefully 5 to 7. We ended up with 7. So we took it from here, around the world, down to Spain. And the most important thing about it is that these leadership competencies not only talk about performance management, they also are related to your compensation, pay for performance, but also in training and development. Elements of the right behaviors will be embedded in your training. Any training program will start and always talk about your behaviors. And then it helps recruitment and selection. You see behaviors. You start looking for people who have the right behaviors, as opposed to just anyone. The most important thing, though, is that this discussion about what is the right and observed behavior happens at the job performance review. It happens during this meeting, the boss and the employee. And most of you are probably in this regard very concerned, anxious. You know, this is not a good discussion. What's going to happen in the discussion? And what our whole purpose is to say, no, it doesn't need to be that way. So what we have to ensure is that the performance management review is fair, is transparent, and is consistent. That's what we want. So everyone is treated in not the exact same way, because not everyone's the same, but in a similar manner that's consistent in the organization. Right now, anything goes. Half of you probably haven't even sat down with your boss to fill out the KPIs. Is that correct? A lot of you just, here's your KPI. Figure it out. No discussion, no input. That's not right. That's not right. Why? Because you know the job, you know the issues, you know the problems within your area of control. You know things are not right. So therefore, how are we going to set them right? It has to be you, the boss, and the people around you. spend the money. Focus on the things that matter, not just putting information on the sheet and saying, oh, we've done our KPIs. That's not a KPI. That's not behavior. Okay, so we talked about where did the behaviors come from. And in the end, these are the 7 behaviors. These behaviors matter to SPAN. These behaviors will allow SPAN to move forward and to become what we view as a world-class regulator of water. And these are the 7. The first 3 are what we call foundational. These are expected behaviors. If you do not have these behaviors, SPAN cannot work. You might as well shut the doors and go home. These are 3 behaviors that are key. The first one is honesty, right? And that honesty means you have to be honest, ethical, and work in the betterment of SPAN, not for your own improvement, but also for the betterment of SPAN. You do things in the name of SPAN, not in the name of your boss or in the name of myself. Do things for SPAN. The second one is called discipline. Know and apply regulations. You are a regulator, so therefore you act according to a regulator. You have more pressure on you to have policies, to follow the policies, to be disciplined about it. If you're not disciplined about it, you cannot expect the water companies, you cannot expect the sewer companies, you cannot expect any of your stakeholders to be disciplined. So you have an extra bit to do, just to be disciplined. So not only honest, but also disciplined. These 2 are fundamental to any regulator. If you don't have honesty in the regulator, there is no regulation. If you don't have discipline in the regulator, there is no regulation. You cannot function as SPAN. And the third one is what we call accountable. That is basically take responsibility and deliver high quality, timely, and cost-effective results. Essentially, do your job. You have a job description, do it. And do it well. Do it to the best of your ability. These are what we call the fundamentals. These are the 3 that basically have to be in place in order for SPAN to function. If you are able to progress as an organization, in 2 to 3 years, willing, we'll be able to get rid of these. These become part of the culture. We don't need to talk about them. They're given. These should be givens, but they're not there yet. Honesty is not at the highest level. Discipline is not where it needs to be. And we're not doing the jobs we need to be doing because we're only hitting 87%. So those 3 things are in place there, foundation. But if you want the organization to move forward, to become truly great, you need these other 4. These are what we call the growth behaviors. You first need to show observable behaviors, proactivity. What is proactivity? Being proactive means you identify and analyze problems, generate potential solutions, argue your way so you can get the buy-in, talk, communicate, think. The difference between someone who is proactive and someone who isn't, someone who is not proactive goes to the boss and says, boss, I have a problem. And the boss solve the problem. Someone who is proactive says, boss, I have a problem, but here's the solution. Here's what I think we should do. You've thought of something. You're bringing up ideas. You're creating ideas. You're creating the space for development. Yes, we all have problems. Every day we have problems. Are you thinking about the solution for those problems? How can we help solve those problems? That's the key. That's what proactive is. And in organizations that are proactive, there's an energy. Because people are talking. Hey, I thought this thing. I saw this. What do you think of it? I have an idea. That's important. The next one is called customer driven. Basically, it's this idea of anticipate and meet the needs of both internal and external stakeholders. As SPAN, you have the disadvantage that you have so many stakeholders. I've never seen so many stakeholders. You have the ministry, you have the mission, you have environmentalists, you have the water people, you have the sewer companies, you have water companies, you have investment companies, you have everyone, and everyone has a different interest. I want my thing to, yeah, but that thing doesn't help anyone. And ultimately, you have customers. You have yourselves, and myself. We're all using water. So basically, this is this idea of if any progress happens, particularly in what we call now the Industrial Revolution 4.0, IR 4.0, is all based on customer care. It's all based on customer care. So if you're able to look at the customer and understand their needs, and not only identify them, but work on them, you are doing the right thing. You are doing the right thing. I can tell you IoT is a huge issue everywhere. It's generated a new term called VUCA, which is volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity. If you think you're confused, you're not nearly as confused as everyone else. There's an enormous amount of uncertainty in the market right now. And with water, water has an enormous impact through IoT. We can measure water, we can value water, we can see the quality of water, the flow of water, where it comes from, things like this. It's going to have an enormous impact. What is the impact? We don't know. It's uncertain. It's super complex because we're going to get data from everywhere. And not always the data is clear, ambiguous. So basically, if you are customer driven, you have a chance of understanding what needs to get done, particularly under IoT. So that's important. The next one is called strategic. Remember the 8 strategies? You need to be working on that. And those are your KPIs. So this is where the link to the KPI comes in. Are you thinking about the long term, the solution, or are you just looking at, oh, this is the solution for today, tomorrow I don't worry about it. That's called strategic. And then finally, the last one is called studious. And this is the idea of you're constantly learning, building your competencies. You're curious about what is happening, not only in your own area, but also within water in general. How do you develop yourself? You can talk to Afnan about, okay, the online programs and all that, but there's so much available information out there, right? YouTube has become the new educator. You can find all sorts of things out there in terms of information and things like that. If you're interested, and you show interest, and you generate education, that is the right behavior. Because things are changing so fast, you need to keep up. And if you're not interested in learning, it's going to be very hard to learn today. Because span is going to be changing so much. So those are the 7. Honest, disciplined, accountable, proactive, customer-driven, strategic, and studious. 7. And those are the 7 behaviors that are going to be observed and that are going to be qualified in the performance management reviews. That's part of your performance management. Now the nice thing about this is that everyone can span. HODs, the CEO, HODs, the executives, the non-executives have these 7. There's no difference in any of them. There is a difference though in the expected behavior. And you can see that here. If you are a non-executive, basically you don't have anyone working for you. It's yourself, right? So yourself is what we call self-leadership. So, and it's level 1. Level 1 self-leadership is basically, that's what we expect you to behave as. We need to see your observable behaviors for yourself, what you do. The next level up is the executive. If you have people who are working for you, under you, then not only do you need to have self-leadership, as expected, but you also need to be leading others. The people who work for you, you need to help them be more honest. You need to help them be more disciplined. You need to help them be more accountable. You have an added responsibility. But it's the same behaviors, just added responsibility. And last but not least, the level 3, those are the HODs, right? HODs, level 3. They not only have to have self-leadership and the ability to energize and to lead their people so that they actually also behave in the right way, they also have to lead the business, which means they have to go outside the company, work with stakeholders, work across the organization. They have an organization-wide, not a department, an organization-wide responsibility. Now, are they there yet? No. No, they're not yet. But they will be, and you will be. So these 3 levels are the same behaviors, but seen through a different prism, depending on your level of responsibility in the organization. Let me just take you one example of that. Let's take studious, right, which is the one where basically we all learn. And we have the same for each one of these, the same setup. So that data exists. I don't want to show it here today because we're going to spend the whole day looking at points. You'll all fall asleep by the 7th point. To keep you awake, I'll just use one. So studious, competency, level 1, self-leadership, span out executives apply and continuously build their own competencies and knowledge. You need to be able to show that behavior. The next one is leading others, so that you're now a span executive. They constantly build their own competencies, right, self-leadership, but also they actively engage with each subordinate to build their individual set of competencies. During the job performance review, the boss should be sitting there with the non-executive saying, okay, what are we going to do this year to build your competency? What are you interested in doing? How can we generate more knowledge in this organization? Okay. The last one is span leadership at leading the business level. That's the first time we've heard this. And we thought this Putrajaya, nothing ever happens. Putrajaya. We get the Putrajaya, there's no noise, nothing, no people. Okay, at least there's some line. So span leaders are continuous learners, so they themselves, but they also drive the need for building competencies and capabilities at all levels of the organization. You will see in meetings that HODs start asking, how can we know this better? Across the organization, it doesn't matter if they're in their department or division, they're talking about it all the time. And in meetings with outside stakeholders, they talk about how can we learn from each other. This is what they think about. It's a mindset change. And that mindset is particularly important here. Right? So they encourage the organization. They work with everyone, talking about the same values of the importance of education. And we need to see that. We need to see the HODs doing that. And then the question came from one of your colleagues. Yeah, but how do we? We're going to be measured, right, by our bosses. But we don't know the HOD. We don't see what they do. So how are we going to judge whether or not the HOD is doing this, right, themselves? Well, there is a way of doing it, and that's through what's called the Employee Engagement Survey. And we're encouraging SPAN to put that into place. It's a yearly survey. We can do it every 6 months, but no, it's a year. And basically what it is it's asking anonymously all employees to rate and rank how A, motivated they are, and B, are they observing the types of cultural change that we said is important. So based on these 7 behaviors, are we seeing that in the big bosses? Are we seeing that at the boss level? Are we seeing it in our colleagues and in ourselves? That's a very important survey. And then you see, as organizations start working properly, that engagement survey is growing. It's called engagement survey because your motivation, as the engagement increases, your motivation increases. People start believing in the systems. People start believing in the organization. They don't switch off, they're switched on. And so therefore, employee engagement surveys are important temperature gauges of where the organization is at. All right. Any questions so far? Okay, so I'll show you now a bunch of slides with words on them. But it's important to understand the practice because you're going to be practicing it this way. So how does it make happen? How do we measure, how do we value behaviors? Because remember, these are observable behaviors. Well, here's the first one, honesty. We said earlier, SPAN non-executives are honest in an ethical manner, act in an ethical manner for SPAN, on the behalf of SPAN. So therefore, within this, there are behaviors that are expected, that are good, that are positive, that build on this. And there are also behaviors that are inappropriate, that are not good, that bring this down. So basically, in terms of honesty, it is the good behaviors you know and you follow the code of ethics. You're open and honest in dealing with the others. You don't hide things, right? If something goes wrong, you don't hide it. You inform the superior or the colleagues of whatever needs to know. Hey, I've got a problem here. Don't shove it under the carpet. Everything's okay. And then things go terribly wrong. If dishonest or unethical behavior is observed, you report it. Some people say, oh, that's fine. No, it isn't. If span is to work properly, and everyone's supposed to be honest, you need to have honesty through the organization. And you basically are looking, you're observing it. If you hear about it, that's not good enough. You have to observe it. You have to observe it. You have to be in contact with it. Yeah? And last but not least, if there's a potential conflict of interest, you're not sure, talk about it. Talk about it, particularly to your supervisor. I'm not sure about this. Is this the right thing to do? Is this the right thing to do? And then over here, we always have inappropriate behaviors. Inappropriate behaviors would be taking credit for the work of others. Does that happen to you? You do something and somebody else takes credit for it? That's not honest. That's not honest. The other thing is gossip. Why is gossip bad? Why is gossip bad? Because basically gossip, by and large, is fake news, right? It's things you hear, not see. And if you're just spreading rumors, rumors destroy culture. They destroy trust, they destroy motivation. They're not healthy, and they're not honest. Honesty is, I observe, we see, right? So gossiping is not something that's supposed to be encouraged. Then, if you use the company's resources to your own benefit, for your own good, you know, we always talk about, oh, people taking pencils from work. Yeah, that's about that level, but no, there's also a lot of other things that happen. If you see it happening, you need to report it. You need to work on it. You need to talk. You can talk to them. This is not the right behavior. This is not the right behavior. Then prioritize own interests over companies and accept bribes and gifts from others. This is particularly important because there's so much money that goes into infrastructure, into water. It's so tempting. So much of it out there. Bribery is a real issue in this area. So we have to stop that. We have to be able to control that at all levels of the organization. Next one is discipline. Same approach. Here's the definition. So understand and apply the rules and regulations. What does that mean in terms of expected behavior? And basically, you know the rules and regulations and you follow them. Right? And if you have any doubt about what it is and how it should be, ask for clarifications. Talk to others. Don't make up assumptions. Do things on your own that you think is right. Another way of looking at it is to say that inappropriate behaviors, that you ignore the rules and regulations, or you go around them. That you remain silent when others disrespect the rules and regulations. And that you make assumptions. These are all observable. These are all observable. Accountability. Here it's you see that some of these, like this one, there's not a lot, right? There are only 3 points. Here there are many points, because there are many ways of verifying, many ways of seeing this. And this one is about you're being conscientious, you care about the quality of the work that you're doing. You're respecting timelines and schedules. You're being decisive and taking things that are within your area of responsibility and in line with your knowledge. And you ask for clarifications if you have doubts. And you ask for help and guidance if you have problems. And then over here is the inappropriateness, the failure to complete the assigned task. You're not communicating in time if something happens. You're not seeking, or you seek to assign blame. It's not my fault, something else happened. Yeah, but by this point in time, it's too late. We talked about it before. Don't look for blame elsewhere. You have the responsibility. You're accountable for your job. You're accountable for doing what you need. And then make decisions beyond your level of responsibility. You know, I'm in charge here, I'll do it. Yeah, but you're not in charge. Proactive. They identify, analyze problems, and generate potential solutions. So look for better ways of doing your tasks. Share ideas. Ask for inputs from others. Question things. Assist colleagues, particularly in achieving their targets. And then inappropriate, be content with just only achieving the minimum. I've done my job, I'm going home, I don't care, see you later. Focus on completing your own work only, being defensive, being closed-minded, not appreciating inputs and feedback. That's not being proactive. Proactive people always think and want feedback. How am I doing? What am I doing? What can I be doing better? Thinking about it. Customer-driven is know your internal and external customers. It's engage with your customers, seeking feedback. It's to show and keep your customer needs front and center. Always talk about what the customer needs are, understand what they are, versus being unaware and not caring about what your customers, who they are, and what their needs are, and that you do not address the customer feedback. You know, I have a problem here, so what? Go away. That's not customer focus. And show support towards customer interaction. Strategic. It's about understanding and being able to expand long-term objectives, where you fit into it, how your work impacts on it. It's how the goals are impacted in your work, and then you're being motivated and expressing commitment. I really believe in this. And then lack here is basically you don't know what you're doing, you don't know why, how you fit in, and you don't care. And the last one, so being confident in subjects that relate to your job and function, know the strengths, your own strengths and weaknesses, apply yourself to the best of your competencies and capabilities, you keep up to date with the latest developments, you're curious, you're asking questions, you're seeking new knowledge. And on the other side is overestimating your capability and knowledge, being unaware of what's happening in the market, being too focused on past experiences to make decisions, and having a general lack of sharing knowledge and understanding. Not talking very much to others. Just make up your own mind. So for each one of these, we also have a whole set for the executives. They're very similar, except that they add in the piece of the commitment to developing your subordinates. I can show them to you, but we're going to be here and everyone's going to fall asleep. So, but if you want, we can share them with you. But these are for the non-executives. They set the foundation for the company. Everything else builds upon it. Okay? So you basically get 90% of what this is about. But if you're an executive, you'll also get additional responsibilities of supporting your subordinates and bringing them up, improving the quality. All right? So basically what I want you to do now, because you have all 7, you know what level you are in the organization. You know what you're doing in terms of behavior, what you're good at and not good at. Take 10 minutes. Go through these elements, and think about, yeah, this is a behavior that, I need to rectify. I need to do more of, right? So I'll just put it back to where the 7 behaviors, these are the 7. So within that, then, what could you do more of? And within that, what could you do less of? Stop doing. Okay? So if you could write that in, and this is a personal exercise. I'm not going to ask you for feedback. This is just so you start thinking about behaviors and about your own behaviors and about how the job is now and how you would like to see the job change in the future. And this is kind of like the way what you do, the exercise you're doing right now is kind of like what's going to happen in your job performance review. So the way you feel right now and what you're writing down, that's what's going to happen. That's the way job performance review is done.